Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Read from verse 29. Sarvabhutastamatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha Yo Mam Pashyati Sarvatra Sarvam Cha Mai Pashyati Tasyaham Na Pranashyami Sacha Na Pranashyati Sarvabhutasthhitam yo mam bhajatyekattvamashritah sarvatha vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate. So in these three verses, Lord Krishna described the vision of the yogi or the wise person, that he sees sameness everywhere. Sarvatra samadarshanaha, one who sees samam, or sameness everywhere. Where sama means same, that which is same in all the dissimilar things, which is one in many, same in dissimilar, changeless in changing, imperishable in the perishable. The idea is that what these sense organs perceive is all dissimilar, all world of dissimilar names and forms. We also perceive that they are all many and varied. We also find that they are all changing and perishable. And so what the organs perceive is one thing, and what the reality is just another thing. Well, what we perceive also is some kind of reality, which is what we call the objective reality, vyavaharik satta, and that also we have to take into account. The variations, duality has to be taken into account. But then at the same time, the fact is that all these duality or diversity doesn't have ultimate reality. Ultimately, all these duality, diversity, dissimilarity, all of it resolves into one. That also has to be known. When that is known, then functioning in the realm of duality is no problem. Right now, the problem that we have is this dissimilarity. The lack of sameness is our problem. Because what I perceive is all dissimilar and separate from me. Therefore, my mind is going to judge something as what I like and something that I do not like. But everything is different from everything else. Therefore, depending upon my own taste, my own aptitude, I would like something and I would not like something else. Maybe I would like one skin color and like some other skin color. I would like one kind of nose, another kind of nose. One kind of height, no other kind of height, and whatever. This dissimilarity therefore creates in me what we call the likes and dislikes. Also, because I see them all as different from me, therefore some of them are going to be agreeable to me, favorable to me, and some others are bound to be unfavorable to me. This also is going to happen. And therefore also, what I judge as favorable or useful is going to be the object of my like or attachment, and whatever I see as unfavorable or not useful or unfavorable particularly is going to become an object of dislike. In short, these likes and dislikes is going to happen in the realm of duality. As long as a person looks upon the duality, dissimilarity as real, so long there is bound to be likes and dislikes. Also, because the world is separate from me and I am separate from the world, therefore I am a small little entity and therefore I am bound to suffer from a sense of insecurity. The insecurity also will create likes and dislikes, because whatever seems to provide me comfort becomes an object of like, whatever provides or threatens me becomes an object of dislike. Therefore the relationships are, all my interactions are going to be preceded by these likes and dislikes. Therefore it's so important to recognize that in and through all the dissimilarity, in fact there is a similarity. In and through the many, there is the one. In and through the perishable, there is the imperishable. This is what in fact is the subject matter of Vedanta, which says that Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma, all this indeed is Brahma. All of this is limitless, all of this is imperishable, meaning that it is the manifestation of one limitless, imperishable reality, Tattvamasi, which in fact is my own self. And therefore, this is now the knowledge of the wise person. As I said, the reason why the knowledge is arisen is because he has settled according to his own self. There is first of all a clarity about who I really am. And he recognizes that this body, the mind, sense organs, this complex in fact is not the self. That I am the witness of this, I am the perceiver, I am the knower, and therefore I am different from them. And that this witness consciousness that I am really has no form, no attribute, and therefore no limit. As a result of the teaching, when one recognizes the true nature of oneself, then it is very easy to see that everywhere the consciousness that I am is a consciousness everywhere, because everything then I see as a combination of what we call Purusha and Prakriti, the self and non-self, as Lord Krishna says, Kshetrajna and Kshetra. Yavat sanjayate kinchit sattvam sthavarjangamam kshetra kshetrajna sanyogat tad viddhi bhartarshava. Here Arjuna understand that whatever is created and whatever exists has these two aspects, Kshetrajna and Kshetra, the consciousness and matter. What we perceive is the material vesture which manifests the consciousness self, which in fact is one and equal. Sarvabhuta sthitam yoma bhajati ekatvama sthitah. So one abiding in this ekatva or oneness that obtains in all the beings as his own self, he is, Lord Krishna says, a liberated sage. Sarvatha vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate. However he or she conducts himself, it does not matter. What matter is what perception or what vision he has, not what conduct he has. Meaning Lord Krishna says that a person's wisdom is not to be judged by the conduct. Although I think we would like to judge it that way, but Lord Krishna says, Sarvatha vartamanopi. However he conducts himself, he still always abides in me. He is never apart from me. As we said in the morning, this appears like giving a license to the wise person. The scriptures also say that wise person is no more now under also the command even of the scriptures. Otherwise, scriptures tell us what is right and what is wrong, what should be done, what should not be done. And everybody is then obliged to follow those stipulations. And those stipulations are there for our own good. When the Veda says that do this, that means that doing that is in your best interest, is for your well-being. And don't do that means that if you do that, you are going to hurt yourself. That is how, by the do's and don'ts, the Veda, the scriptures in fact, tell us how to help us and how to not hurt ourselves. But all of this is only in the realm of ignorance. These things in fact do not apply to the wise person, because he does not anymore look upon himself as an individual separate from other things. As we say, he no more has the sense of doership, and therefore he is no more under the spell or under the control of these do's and don'ts or within Nisheda, which is what is meant by saying that in whichever he conducts himself, still he is never away from me. Then, Lord Krishna, are you giving a license to this wise person to behave in whichever way he wants? Lord Krishna says, no, he will not do that. This is only to praise the knowledge that this is said. To praise the knowledge, look at the glory of this knowledge. Look at the glory of this wisdom. That doesn't matter what the person does, till he never is deviated from his wisdom. He never gets deviated from his knowledge that I am Brahman and that everything is Brahman. And to praise that knowledge, Lord Krishna said that in whichever way he conducts himself, he still is okay. But how does he actually conduct himself? That is said in the verse 32. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna. Yaha sarvatra samam pashyati. One who sees the same everywhere. Atmaupamyena, by making himself as a standard of judgment, as a measuring rod. So Lord Krishna says the wise person sees everything by placing himself, by making himself as a standard. Sukham va yadi va dukkham. In case of happiness or unhappiness, the wise person makes himself as a very standard. What does it mean? It means simple as this. Just as sukham or happiness is something that I like, so also others also like happiness. And just as I do not like unhappiness or sorrow or pain, so also others do not like unhappiness or sorrow or pain. Simple as that. Or it can be said other way also, that whenever interacting with the world, whenever interacting with anybody, the wise person places himself in the position of other and then decides how to act. What kind of a response would I expect if I was in that position? Atma upamyena, upama, placing himself as a very standard. Therefore, whenever he interacts with anybody, first of all, he treats that person as nothing but his own self. That is something spontaneous for the wise person. And it would be equivalent to saying that, how do we emulate him? As I said, the reason why Lord Krishna describes wise person in many places is so that what is spontaneous or what is effortless for that person is a value to be cultivated with effort. Since wise person knows that I am the self of all, and therefore he treats everything as he would treat himself. Because he does not see difference between himself and anybody else. By saying that, Lord Krishna also is giving as though a direction or guideline to everybody. Sayogi paramo mataha. In my opinion, Lord Krishna says he is the most exalted yogi, meaning that everyone can become a most exalted yogi simply by doing this, while interacting with anybody, using myself as the very standard. As I said, if I were in that position, what kind of a behavior would I expect? And this is, as Swamiji would point out, the very basis of all the dharma, or what they call the common sense values, or the universal values. This is the basis of all the values. Non-violence becomes a value. Why is non-violence a value? Because I would never want to hurt myself. And I would not want anyone else to hurt me also. I want to live and live happily. I do not want anyone to come in the way of my freedom to pursue my life and living happily. And similarly, I know that others also want to live and live happily, and that they also do not want me to come in their way of their pursuit of freedom and happiness. This is a very simple thing. This is what forms the basis of ahimsa or non-violence. So ideally, what is a non-violent behavior is the kind of behavior that I would do to myself. Just as I'm always ready. I'm always ready to in fact make sure that I do not have any pain or unhappiness. I'm always ready, always trying or always exerting to make sure that I never become unhappy. At the same time, I always make an effort to make sure that I become happy. So as far as I am concerned, my effort always is to see that I am happy and to see that I am not unhappy. Then wise person also does the same thing to other person, makes an effort to see that other person is not unhappy and makes an effort to see that other person is happy. So understand that non-violence is not really a negative value or a passive value, it becomes a very dynamic value. Non-violence does not stop merely at not hurting somebody, but then non-violence is the kind of treatment that I show to myself. How I always make an effort to avoid pain, sukha prapti, dukkha nivrutti, to avoid the pain and to pursue happiness. I always make an effort for myself. A real non-violent person would be not only that the person would not hurt others, but just as for himself he would make an effort to secure happiness, and so also he would make an effort to secure happiness for others also. So this is how non-violence does not merely mean I do not hurt others, which is great, of course. Even not hurting others also is great. The simple rule is that we should not do unto others what we do not want others to do to us. It arises from this. So we can see ultimately how these values of non-violence or truthfulness, all of these are based on non-duality. That there is only one self, one without a second. That forms the basis of all the values. Even truthfulness. Yoga Shastra prescribes these 5 values. First is non-violence, then truthfulness, and non-stealing, and non-indulgence, and non-hoarding, etc. But really, all of these are nothing but one value, non-violence. Because whenever I tell a lie, I am violating somebody else's right, and therefore it amounts to violence. Whenever I steal, then also I am violating somebody's right, it is violence. Whenever I indulge, then I am violating myself also. Whenever indulge meaning that whenever I go out of my boundaries, in eating, drinking, doing anything, then I am actually hurting myself. As I said, one teenager once asked me, Swami, how come all Swamis always talk about, they seem to have some kind of, why do they say that we should not have fun in our life? Why do they always seem to talk about discipline and restraint and stuff like that? What's wrong with having pleasure, fun in life? What's wrong with enjoying life? I said, no, Vedantin will say you don't enjoy life. Vedanta doesn't say you should not enjoy life. I said, only thing you should see is, while enjoying the life, make sure that you do not hurt yourself. So, whereas your capacity is to eat 3 chapatis, and because the food is good, and therefore you wind up eating 6 chapatis, that means that you are hurting yourself. So, whenever we indulge, meaning that whenever we exceed the boundaries, then we are hurting ourselves. So, therefore, brahmacharya means a life of self-control, is meant for preventing hurt to ourselves. And therefore, ahimsa or non-violence becomes a primary value. Therefore, here Shankaracharya interprets this value as non-violence. Ahimsaka ityartha. A wise person is ahimsaka. He is a non-violent person. He will never violate anybody. He will never hurt anybody. But Swamiji, I think we have seen some people hurting also. Well, what happens is, sometimes you have to hurt in order to help. Now that's a different matter. Sometimes you have to hurt in order to help. Like the common example that we give is a mother. When the child is sick and mother has to administer medicine, then child doesn't want the medicine because it is bitter, and mother makes sure that this fellow consumes medicine. And therefore, when the child runs away, as mother reaches out for the medicine cabinet and takes out that bottle of bitter medicine, the child sees, runs away. She'll chase him and catch hold of him. And if still he does not cooperate, then she puts him in his lap and, takes the spoon in her hand. He still does not cooperate, she'll press his nose, his mouth opens, and she pushes the medicine. This looks like a very cruel act, at least from the standpoint of the child. And there is some cruelty, I guess, here, maybe, from the standpoint of the child, but that also is meant for the well-being of the child. And therefore, but as far as the intention is concerned, a wise person, would never want to hurt. Why would you want to hurt anybody? We wind up hurting people only because we become subject to our impulses such as anger or greed. So whenever a person acts out of anger or greed, then his action is going to be violent. But here is a person who has resolved all those impulses. And therefore, one with a complete mastery over his mind. That being the case, he is not subject to, he doesn't have any personal agenda also. The anger comes whenever somebody comes in the way of my fulfillment of my personal agenda. I want to accomplish something, you come in my way, I get angry. But if there is nothing to accomplish, if I want to reach a certain destination and I am rushing fast and these traffic lights are red, I get angry. If somebody cuts me off, I get angry. Because I want to reach a destination, or I have to reach destination in a certain time. But if I am driving, no destination to reach, and no time to make, traffic red light, okay, stand there, watch around, how people are fretting and this, you can watch everybody. Somebody cuts you off, then also is okay. How smart the fellow is, you can enjoy. People are smart, no doubt about that. And if you want to see how smart people are while driving, you have to go to India. They're really smart. And what risks they take? Inches distance, but they maneuver their vehicles. You can enjoy all of this if you have no agenda. We can't enjoy this thing because I have to reach, and all this becomes a nuisance to me. But if, as I said, there's no agenda, mind is completely at leisure. And there's no need to hurt anybody, because hurting somebody, the question comes only when I have a certain agenda. That alone is called a wise person who has no agenda, as we discussed this morning, that he has no need to exercise his free will. He is completely given to the force of destiny, and therefore he takes the life as it comes, without any reaction. Therefore he is ahimsaka, meaning he is non-violent person in the primary sense. As far as the aspirants or seekers are concerned, that we try to practice this value, which is a difficult thing to practice. But for us to become this Parama Yogi or great Yogi, Lord Krishna shows a method. Place yourself in the condition of the other person, Atma Upamyana. Let Atma, the self, do Upama. As we said, may I become the standard for treating other people. And I place myself in the condition of other person and ask myself, how would I like to be treated if I was in that condition? And I know that I would like to be always treated in a very kind way. Even if I may committed a fault, I would like somebody else to forgive me. That is why forgiveness, kindness automatically become value. They are all part of non-violence. Sayogi paramo mataha. That's all we need to try. To become great yogis, nothing else is required. Although this will require everything, of course, but then this is worth trying. Every time, what happens is, of course, when we are on the spur of the moment, all this is forgotten. But one thing we can do, every day we get provoked. That is how the life is. People provoke us. We get angry, we get upset. But usually, there are some standard reasons for provocation, Every day I get angry, essentially the same people. Same pattern generally repeats. Is my boss, a certain colleague, the spouse, my child, this neighbor. Some people every day do this. And every day we get upset. So I suggest that every day we can meditate for 10 or 15 minutes in the morning and visualize those encounters. That okay, when I go to work, my boss will do this colleague will do this, the secretary will do this, when I come home the spouse will do this, the child comes from school, that fellow will do this. And a few people every day do things, and every day we get upset. Then we can plan and decide a strategy, rehearse. This is happening, and then how am I going to act? That way we can prepare ourselves, and still we may forget. But if this is every day, slowly and slowly the mind then will remember, wait a minute, I am not supposed to do this, I am supposed to do that. But this helps us keeping our impulses under check. And that's how we can avoid the violence or hurting other people. But non-violence is the primary value. All the value is nothing but many expressions of non-violence alone. So understand, Bhagavad Gītā teaches non-violence. Some people say that, look, Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, Tasmad yudhyasva bharata. Therefore, hey Arjuna, therefore you stand up and fight. So Bhagavad Gītā seems to be teaching violence. Because Arjuna is asked to fight. But that's not so. When Lord Krishna says, hey Arjuna, you rise and fight, it means you perform your duty. Arjuna's duty happens to be to fight this battle, therefore it is fighting, but you perform the duty. Not only that, but before you fight, make sure that you have this disposition of mind and then you fight. Whereas in the beginning, in the second chapter itself, Lord Krishna said, Sukha dukkhe samaya krutva labha labhau jaya jayo tato yuddha yujyasva naivam papam avapchase. Arjuna said that, Lord, I will fight this battle, I will kill these people, I will be a great sinner. He says, if you do this, then even fighting this battle, in case people get killed by you, it will not be a papa or a sin if you have this disposition of mind. And what is that? Sukha dukkhe samaya krutva. Treat pleasure and pain as equal. Labh alabho, twain gain and loss as equal. Jaya jayo, treat victory and defeat as equal. Meaning that you are fighting battle not for victory, for dharma, not for gain, for dharma, not for pleasure, for dharma. If victory, gain or dharma, if that becomes your agenda, then it will be violent action. Because I am likely to compromise the means for the sake of the end. And therefore, to be non-violent also, it is important that we do not compromise means for the sake of the end. Because if the end is kept, that is why Lord Krishna says, may you give up your attachment to the result of action. Meaning that for the sake of securing a certain outcome, do not compromise means. Make sure that you follow this dharma or the universal values, and then whatever comes as a result of that honest effort, accept it gracefully. It is not that people who follow dharma will necessarily not attain their goal, they will. There seems to be a wrong conclusion that if you follow righteousness, you can never make it. That's not right also. But in any case, even if you make something, it's not going to be worthwhile, it is not a blessing to you, it is going to be a curse to you, and therefore non-violence also requires me to practice my values and not compromise means for the sake of end. So therefore, this verse was specifically stated by Lord Krishna, because in earlier verse, Lord Krishna said that however this wise person conducts, he always abides in me. Therefore now, this verse tells us the working of the mind of the wise person, that he always treats everybody else as his own self. And how he treat himself, that's how he treats others. In fact, another thing is that since wise person is also, he knows Ishvara as his own self, therefore, in fact, he is always in harmony with the order. Ishvara, order is the manifestation of Ishvara, and therefore, when the wise person knows Ishvara as his own self, he knows order as his own self. He is always in harmony with the order. So whatever he does is going to be in keeping with the order. It will be in keeping with the dharma. As far as the seekers are concerned, then they should follow the order, and primarily the order of non-violence, which is possible when I place myself in the position of the other person whenever I interact with the other person. And this is how, in fact, the chapter of Dhyana Yoga is complete. Whatever Lord Krishna had to say about yoga of meditation, of gaining an abidance in the self, is all complete, and the chapter would have come to a conclusion here. But again Arjuna asks a question. If Arjuna did not ask this question, this is where the chapter would have concluded. But Arjuna asks a question, a very practical question. So let us go to the next verse, verse 33. Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatva sthitim sthiram Arjuna said, in fact, questioning Lord Krishna, how is it possible? Lord Krishna, you are saying that the one ekatvamasthitaha, one abiding in oneself. Bhajat ekatvamasthitaha, one abiding in the vision of oneness. How is it possible? Yoyam yoga tvaya proktaha samyena. O Lord, this yoga, sarvatra samadrushti lakshana. You say that this yoga is of the vision or the knowledge of seeing the same self, seeing the self everywhere, seeing everything as equal. In all the inequalities, seeing everything as equal. Because as we say, Brahman or Ishvara is the self of all. The consciousness is the self of all. And that way, everybody is equal. All living beings are equal in as much as same consciousness, which is I, is the self of all. As a matter of fact, for the wise person, even insentient beings also are equal because the same intelligence manifests, the same consciousness manifests as this world of sentient and insentient beings. And just as a goldsmith very clearly knows that all the ornaments are an manifestation of one gold, and so also consciousness or Atma is the material cause that alone manifests the whole universe, and that's myself. But this yoga of seeing the same self everywhere, samyena, which seeing is possible only when my mind is completely free from all the pairs of opposites, namely likes and dislikes. And only when my mind is free from every disturbance, mind has gained the capacity to be able to focus on this oneness. Meaning when the mind has been able to drop every like and dislike, mind has been able to drop every role and is able to then focus on this oneness, the self everywhere. Lord Krishna, you know what it requires? Etasyaham na pashyami sthiram sthitim. I do not see how this is possible. I do not see how it is possible that the mind can ever become free from all likes and dislikes, all pairs of opposites. Mind can become really so pure that it is so accommodative that no differences count at all. See, to the wise person, no differences count at all. It does not matter whether this person is a friend or a foe. Remember earlier it was said, Suhrun mitrar yudasiyena madhyastha dveshya bandhushu sadhu svabhijapapeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. So wise person is samabuddhi, he sees all of them as equal. Whether he is a benefactor, he is a friend, he is an enemy, he is neutral, he is a well-wisher, he is a papi, or a sinner, or a saint, doesn't matter what he is. In his vision, everybody is equal. You know what it means? It means that the mind should be able to set aside the effects created by all the differences. How can you treat everybody as equal when inequality has no effect on your mind at all? This person hates me and this person loves me. How can I look upon both of them as equal when hatred and love doesn't affect me at all? That hatred also does not affect my love, and therefore I am not partial to somebody or not cruel to somebody. What an amount of poise, what an amount of purity, what an amount of equanimity this mind requires. In order for me to gain this vision, and even if I gain it momentarily, to gain an abidance in this vision, says, Sthitim sthiram, to retain this vision for a length of time, I do not see this ever possible. Arjuna says that, Lord Krishna, what you said is great, but I do not, it's akshapati, he questions. I do not see this ever possible at all. Why, Arjuna, what's the problem? Chanchalatvat manasah. Because of the chanchalatvam, because of the restlessness of the mind. Oh Lord, the mind is restless, and therefore I do not see how this vision or abidance in the vision is possible where the mind must be completely resolved. Mind must be totally accommodative. Mind must not react at all to whether he is a saint or a sinner. Mind has no flicker of reaction. Whether he is an enemy or a friend, no reaction. Whether a saint or a sinner, no reaction. Whether it helps me or hurts me, no reaction at all. A totally non-reacting mind, a totally accepting mind, a totally accommodating mind, in fact, a totally loving mind. That love must be so unconditional that no conditions matter at all. Lord Krishna, how is it possible? How can you ever acquire a mind like that? I don't think that anybody can be like that who has this mind. Chanchalatvat, on account of the chanchalatvam, the restlessness of the mind. And you know that mind is restless. Arjuna says that in the next verse. He describes the chanchalatvam, or the restlessness or unsteadiness of the mind, little more elaborately in the next verse. Chanchalam himanah krishna pramathi balavadrudham tasyaham nigraham manye Vayoriva sudushkaram. Arjuna is very sincere and very honest, and his difficulty he is presenting before Lord Krishna, before the teacher. So they say that before the Guru and before Vaidya, because of physician, you must be open. You cannot hide things there, otherwise they won't be able to help you. So Arjuna is very open. Either Arjuna is describing the condition of his mind, or Arjuna is describing the condition of a mind of an ordinary person. I do not think personally that Arjuna's mind is like this. For the simple reason that Arjuna is a highly accomplished person. You might all remember also the story from Mahabharata. When Pandavas and Kauravas, all the princes, when they were all trained, they completed their training from the Guru Dronacharya. Then the Guru actually conducted a test for all of them. And on a tree, on a particular branch of the tree at the end, one bird was kept there. And the test was to pierce the right eye of that bird. So one by one the princes came forward. And Dronacharya would ask each one of them, so what do you see? I see the tree, and I see the branch, and I say this, and sit down. When Bhimsen, what do you see? I say Duryodhana, I say sit down. Everybody, When Arjuna came, what do you see? I see the tree. You mean the whole tree? No, sir, I just see the branch. The whole branch? No, just the tip of the branch. The tip of the branch? No, just that bird. You mean the whole bird? No, just two eyes. Two eyes? Both eyes? No, just the right eye. Shoot. That's how Arjuna shot the arrow. So that shows what a power of concentration Arjuna had. He was a very highly accomplished person. He was well known. Arjuna was a very hard-working person also. Therefore, Dronacharya was a little partial to his son Ashwatthama. So along with Pandavas and Kauravas, Ashwatthama also was learning the arts of, this archery and everything else. And what Dronacharya would do is, when all the princes are doing their morning rituals and taking bath, etc., that time Dronacharya would give a special lesson to this Ashwatthama. What Arjuna would do, he would rush quickly before everybody else finishes bath and be ready when Dronacharya is giving that lesson to Ashwatthama. This is how he was. So I don't think that this is description of his mind. But anyway, whether description of his mind or description of a mind, but I am sure that this description much resonates with us because what he describes here seems to be very familiar. He is Prasiddhi, O Lord is well known. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna. For whatever reason, here Shankaracharya in the Bhashya gives a meaning of the word Krishna. Usually he doesn't spend time with this kind of things. But Krishna, Shankaracharya explains that word Krishna is derived from root Krish. The Krish in the sense of pulling. Krushi means agriculture. And so, Krush Vilekhanam. So, pulling. So, Krishna is the one who pulls or removes all the pain and all the sorrow and all the ignorance from his devotees. Or Akarshadi Dadati, or the one who imparts all the good qualities and blessings to the devotees. Both the meanings are there. So Krishna means one who removes the pain and sorrow of the devotees, and the one also who grants all the happiness and goodness to the devotees. So Arjuna addresses Lord Krishna as Krishna here. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna. Oh Krishna, you know this. You know my difficulty. You describe this Samya Yoga, which is the most wonderful thing. It is really so great, so inspiring. And even just to know that this is there, that there can be a person who abides in the vision of sameness, vision of oneness, in whose perception there is no difference whatever. All the superficial differences do not count. What counts to that person is what the essence, in essence, everything is, that in essence, everything is consciousness, everything is Brahman, or everything is divine. That's all that counts, and doesn't matter what the personality is, what matters is just the person. That vision is so great, and it's so inspiring that I would love to do that. So Lord Krishna, you have to help me. Two ways. First of all, remove all the very obstacles. My mind itself seems to be an obstacle. In fact, Lord Krishna said this earlier. Atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu, atmaiva ripuhu atmana. Your own self, your own mind can be your friend, or your own mind also can be your enemy. Which mind is friend? There also Lord Krishna said, the mind that has been brought under control is your friend. And the mind that is not under your control acts as your own enemy. So Lord, right now, my own mind seems to act as my enemy. Because it is subject to all these impulses. Says, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna. Hey Krishna, my mind is Chanchalam. Atishay Chalam. Very restless. Chanchalam and Chanchalam. Chanchalam is very restless. Pramathi, turbulent. Mind is not only restless or unsteady, but is turbulent. Sometimes the mind is such that it takes hold of the sense organs of the body, and I have no control over anything. Mind does what it wants to do. Bhalavat, it is very strong. Dridham, it is very obstinate. Obstinate. Once it decides to do something, it will do it. Regardless, I can't even reason with it. Like sometimes our children, if they have decided that they want something, that's what, then they want it. We always advise parents, always to reason with their children. Swami, you don't know. Reason with the children. We reason with them. They come back. But, with all the reason, they come, but mom, may I have this? But this is no good for, but may I have it? Once decided, then that is what they want, and that's why once mind has made its mind, then that's what it wants, nothing else. And Bhalavat, it is very strong, it's difficult to pull it out. When the mind engages itself in the thinking of some object, I can't bring it back. And it just creates turbulence in me. It completely shakes me up. So mind is restless, unsteady, creates turbulence, shakes entirely my personality. It is strong, it is obstinate. Tasyaham nigraham manye. To make this mind completely single-pointed, to make this mind completely resolved, meaning all the restlessness is gone, all the obstinance is gone, everything is gone, and mind becomes completely a friend. Right now the mind as it is seems to be a great enemy of me because he doesn't seem to cooperate at all. I want to do one thing and mind has its own mind, it has its own agenda, endeavor, it does what it wants to do. Sometimes I urge my mind, come on fellow, Ram, come, repeat Ram, 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 Ram. He repeats a few times and then runs away. So when I start Hanuman Chalisa, I know the first line and I know the last line. In between I don't even know. Either Hanuman Chalisa is over, but then I don't know. I realize at the end of the whole chant. Because mind seems to have its own agenda. Tasyaham nigraham manye. For doing what you said, O Lord, what I need is nigraham, a complete mastery over the mind. The ability to completely resolve the mind. And unless I am able to do that, this vision of samyam or oneness is not possible at all. So he expresses frustration. So when we hear something most wonderful, how wonderful Mount Everest is, and a wonderful description, and then you say, oh, I can't climb, I can't do that. Very frustrating. And so also Arjuna seems to express as though his frustration. Tasyaham nigraham manye vayoho eva sudushkaram. I think that the nigraha, controlling the mind, is more difficult than even controlling wind. Nobody can control wind anyway, but even if you could control wind, so vayoho eva, as dushkaram, as difficult it is to control the wind, so difficult or more difficult, Lord, I think that it is to control the mind. But you are Krishna, therefore I am sure you can do that. So please help me and remove all these various obstacles which are in my mind. Remove all my restlessness, remove all my unsteadiness, remove all the obstacles, and grant me a mind that can get completely resolved, can get abidance in the self. Because this yoga that you told me is exactly what I want. But that's what, as we said, is nothing but moksha. And that's what I want. And so Arjuna is presenting a very practical difficulty, and Lord Krishna replies in the next verse, verse 35. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha gruhyate. See, Arjuna's question and his difficulty is very valid because there is no choice. We have to be able to master our mind. It is necessary. Not necessarily only for self-knowledge, in fact it is necessary to live our day-to-day life also. Even to live our day-to-day life also, it is necessary that our mind should be essentially in our control. Meaning, mind should be helpful to me, favorable to me, mind should be my friend. Because whenever I come under the spell of something like anger, or jealousy, or resentment, or greed, at that time, I am no more what I am really. I become a different person. I become a demon. I become an animal. I do not even remain a human being, let alone a noble person. Because this anger then rules my mind, and that thus makes me behave in a manner which is most unbecoming, which I always regret later on. So all our knowledge, all our culture, all our training, all of this does not become available to us whenever we cannot control our mind. The idea is that all the wisdom that we have, even if you have the knowledge, let us say, is not possible in case one gain the knowledge of self, then also that will not really benefit me unless that knowledge is applied in practice. And ultimately it has to apply only through the mind. So in the management also we emphasize and understand that it is one thing to acquire all the hard skills as to how to do things, but the soft skill of having the mind available to me is most important, because ultimately all my knowledge and skills have to be expressed through my mind. And if I cannot control my mind, then all my capabilities are of no use to me. As in case of Arjuna also. Arjuna was a great warrior and he was capable of fighting this battle. He had all the resources and capabilities. But then his mind was not available to him because he became sad. He was stricken with grief and therefore lost all his energy, lost all his motivation. He couldn't do anything. So Arjuna, who is such a great warrior, also was not even able to hold his bow. He could not even stand. He had to sit down. Then what to talk of anybody else? Therefore, understanding and mastering the mind becomes very, very important. That is why Arjuna's question is very relevant. Because not only Arjuna, everybody has to cultivate this mind. Then alone this knowledge will be useful. First of all, we cannot even understand the scriptures unless our mind enjoys a certain composure and certain maturity. And secondly, that even if you somehow understood that understanding will not be of any practical use unless the mind is available to put that understanding in practice. And so a common complaint about people attending Vedanta classes. Common complaint from the spouses who are not attending classes. Because those who do not attend the class have always to have some justification of why they are not attending. Because Swamiji, after attending class also for so many years, look at my husband. Or look at my wife, whatever. What changes happen? So unless these persons are aware that we have to work with our mind, because mind is the instrument through which we express ourselves. And therefore, unless we have worked with our mind and cleaned it up, as they say, until then, all our wisdom, we are great in Swamiji. When he gives me lectures, it is something else. He always advises me at home. And he always quotes Gītā, but when it comes to his own behavior, because when he is in his right mind, then he is a learned person, no doubt about that. But when he is not in his right mind, then all learning seems to disappear. It is everybody's problem. And therefore, Lord Krishna also says, Asamshayam Mahabaho Manaha Durnigraham Chalam. He Mahabahu, O mighty I am Arjuna, what you say is right. Asamshayam, there is no doubt that mind is durnigraham. It is extremely difficult to control. Chalam, that it is restless. And we should also understand other adjectives Arjuna used. Balavat dridham. It is very strong, very obstinate, is unsteady, restless, and extremely difficult to control. Arjuna, there is no doubt about that. Swamiji considers this statement very important. Lord Krishna acknowledges that indeed mind is like this. Which means that we should also acknowledge that this is how the mind is. That mind is restless, mind is unsteady, it is difficult to focus. It is difficult to focus or it is difficult to retain the focus also. That's because mind in no time jumps from one topic to the other or from one subject to the other. Attention span is a very difficult thing. Attention span. And therefore these Vedanta classes, when they stretch out beyond 1 hour, become very difficult because, even 1 hour itself is too long. Attention span. Because it requires our mind to be very alert and apply our intellect all along. Because it's quite a demanding discipline. People get tired, exhausted at the end of the class, they have to go to the dining hall right away, have a cup of coffee. So Lord, Asamshayam. So our Swamiji says that first step is to recognize that this is how the mind is and not blame the mind and not blame ourselves for that. Not feeling a sense of shame or a sense of guilt or a sense of shame because the mind is like that. It is the nature of mind. Says that is half the battle won. Because usually we keep on feeling very shameful because our mind is restless and because I cannot control my mind, because there is anger in my mind, because there are impulses in my mind, and therefore I am very ashamed of myself. I very often blame myself also for having this kind of mind. So Swamiji says that let us acknowledge and accept that this is how the mind is. There is no reason to feel ashamed of it. There is no reason to blame myself or anybody for that, and accept it as it is. Also, manaha durnigraham, that it is extremely difficult to bring the mind, to master the mind. That also let us acknowledge that it is difficult to master the mind. And that it is not only my difficulty, it is how the mind in general is, meaning that whoever has a mind has this difficulty. When this is done, then at least we start from a very objective basis. Because if we do not accept ourselves because the mind is restless or unsteady, I cannot focus, when I do not accept that mind, I do not accept myself, then itself it puts me in a very disadvantageous position. And therefore, I need not congratulate myself because my mind is restless. I am not saying that. Nor should I blame myself or feel ashamed of myself. So, okay, this is how the mind is. So Lord Krishna first acknowledges. In the second line, tells us how to bring this mind under mastery. Tu, however, Arjuna, abhyasena the kaunteya vairagyana chi gruhyate. Tu means, however, Arjuna, it is true that it is extremely difficult to master the mind. However, abhyasena, by what is called abhyasa, vairagyana, by what is called vairagya, it is possible to bring the mind under control. It can be done. So what is required is what is the upaya. For solving every problem, there must be upaya or a means. We should know that. Sometimes that is more important than even, you sometimes try very hard in opening something and closing something and try all your strength. Nothing works. All it needs is a little thing, Sometimes a little thing we do not know and we work, we strive so hard. Similarly also, dealing with everything is always a way of doing things. Similarly, in dealing with the mind also, Lord Krishna says that you should know what's the upaya, what's the method or means of bringing this mind under control, abhyasa and vairagya. This is what Lord Krishna prescribes here. In fact, that is what is prescribed in Yoga Shastra also. There is a sutra in Yoga Shastra which talks about abhyasa and vairagya. We'll continue our discussion tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari